Hello and welcome to our brand new Across the Channel podcast, your weekly show on French football. My name is Matt Spiro and I am your host for this exciting new venture. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a British journalist who came across the channel to live in France back in 2002. I've been based in Paris ever since, reporting, writing and commentating on the French game. I am very, very excited to get this project up and running. I love Ligue 1 and I genuinely think it is a very underrated league, both in terms of its quality and its entertainment value. It doesn't get the coverage, particularly internationally, that it deserves. We want to help put that right. We want this podcast to be fun and light-hearted, but also informative, as our experts who are out here working at the games offer real insight into the culture of French football. What makes it so colourful and what's actually happening out in the stadiums. The podcast will be delivered at the start of each week throughout the season and we'll be reflecting on the latest action and the major talking points from Ligue 1. Unlike the previous podcast that I was involved in, that you may know or may remember, Le Beaujoire, which had the backing of the French League, this is purely an independent project. And it means that we can say exactly what we think. It also means that we're relying entirely on you guys listening, subscribing, liking, leaving nice reviews, and ensuring that we can keep on going and make this project a success. So, bienvenue, welcome on board, and thank you for joining us. Without any further ado, let's get going with episode 1 of Across the Channel. Welcome along. It's been an eventful summer in France and it was an eventful opening weekend in Ligue 1 too, starting on Friday night with a shock defeat for Marseille against 10-man Rennes. Ludovic Blas scored the winner for the hosts in the 91st minute and according to the French press, the walls were trembling inside the away dressing room after the game as Roberto De Zerbi teared strips off his players. Marseille in crisis already? Surely not. They are, though, already 3 points adrift of PSG, who won 1-0 at Nantes, thanks to Vitinha's second-half goal. Monaco swatted Le Havre side 3-1, while big spending Strasbourg clinched the honours in the derby at Metz, thanks to a late strike from their Argentine recruit, Joaquin Panicelli. Lyon fans spent much of the summer preparing themselves for a campaign in Ligue 2, but they are still in Ligue 1, and they secured a 1-0 win at Lens on Saturday. Meanwhile, there was confusion aplenty in Brest after a bizarre Lille goal and a terrific contest finished 3 apiece. Finally, Auxerre edged past promoted Lorient. Angers beat another newcomer, Paris FC, 1-0. And Toulouse triumphed 1-0 away to Nice. Now, to dissect all of that, I'm delighted to say I've got 2 very distinguished guests with me. Welcome to Across the Channel, writer, author and television pundit Tom Williams. Tom, how are you?
Very well, thanks, Matt. Very happy to be here.
It's great to have you, Tom, a veritable French football expert, as is Andy Scott, my other guest, Ligue 1 commentator who was in Nantes last night commentating Nantes against Paris Saint-Germain and has just about made it back in time to record the pod. Andy, how are you?
Good afternoon, Matt. I'm very good, thank you.
Great to hear the dulcet Scottish tones of Andy Scott. We're going to jump straight in with our first little theme. We're going to ask you guys who the heroes and the villains were from the weekend. I'll start with you, Tom. Who was your hero this weekend on the opening round of Ligue 1?
Well, multiple candidates, but I'm going to go for Joaquin Panicelli, new Strasbourg centre-forward. He's from Argentina. He's a big unit. He's good in the air. He's got a fantastic surname. He's been signed to take a little bit of the goal-scoring pressure off Emmanuel Omega's shoulders. Making his debut in the derby at Metz. And when you sign a big, lumbering Argentinian centre-forward who's good in the air, what do you want him to do in his first game? score a header with about 5 minutes to go that seals the win, and that's exactly what he did, and celebrated it in the most Argentinian style fashion with a kind of, it felt to me like a bit of a nod to the famous Diego Maradona celebration at USA 94, the one that happened just before he got done for doping, when he kind of like ran straight towards this pitch side camera, screaming straight down the lens, which is what Panicelli did. So yeah, you can't do much better for a Ligue 1 debut. So I'm going to go with Strasbourg's new Argentinian goal-getter.
Yeah, big win as well for Strasbourg in the derby against newly promoted Metz. We were obviously really impressed with Liam Rossigne's side last season. They've had a number of transfer dealings, incomings, outgoings as well. Interesting though, Panicelli, I agree with the name. It sounds like a nice sort of delicious pastry or something, but he's going to play up alongside Emmanuel Emega, who was excellent and by all accounts could be moving to Chelsea next summer. Do you see that duo working together?
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, on paper, they look like they should complement each other, with Panicelli as the target man and Emega slightly more mobile. You know, we know how much he likes to work the channels and drift wide. And I mean, I think, you know, one of the helpful things for Strasbourg last season was that, you know, the goals came from everywhere, more or less. But you know that there were games where you felt that it was all on Omega's shoulders. So I think having another striker alongside him will help with that. And then tactically, again, you know, we know how versatile and how creative Liam Rossigné is with the way he sets his team up, and so the ability now to play with two proper out and out centre forwards just gives him, you know, a whole set of other tactical options.
Okay, Tom, it's going to be fascinating to watch Strasbourg this season. Can I have your villain now, who should be hanging their head in shame this morning?
So I'm going to go for a collective villain. The thought of kind of singling out one individual feels a bit mean, and I, you know, try my best to be a kind-hearted individual. So I'm going to go for the entire Brest defence for their reaction. It was the third Lille goal, wasn't it? It was the 3-2 goal.
It put Lille 3-2 up, yeah.
Yes, so basically Brest are defending a corner which is swung into the box. The linesman creates a huge amount of confusion by putting his flag up as soon as the corner is taken to signal that it's gone out of play for a goal kick. But then the Brest defence commit the cardinal sin of stopping, not playing to the referee's whistle, and I think it's Nagaliel Macau prods home the goal, which at the time put Lille 3-2 up. Brest ended up pegging them back again at the end of the game. And then they compound the mistake by doing the most French thing possible. And I'm trying to think how do we say it in English? Poser une réserve. Going to the side of the pitch and formally, you know, submitting the paperwork, more or less, to officially proclaim their dissatisfaction. You know, you've already got the amateurish defending, and then you add on this absolutely ridiculous administrative reaction to somehow try and get the goal ruled out or something. Simple message, lads. Play to the whistle, and you would have been absolutely fine. Yeah,
judging by French bureaucracy, they should get an answer to that complaint in about 6 months. I would have
exactly.
Thought. But no, it's a very good shout, Tom. And actually, I'm going to let you know who my villain is now, because it's very much linked to that same incident. I was commentating the game, cracking game, 3 apiece, but obviously this incident was absolutely key. Now, my villain, I'm a bit harsher maybe than you, Tom. My villain is the referee's assistant. Now, I have to admit, I was on the internet trying to identify the assistant's name. Now, I've got the 2 assistants' names, but like you, Tom, I'm going to be a bit kind, because it looks like the French press are avoiding naming him, which is probably, you know, a good thing in terms of what happens on social media these days. Although I guess, you know, if you dig deep enough, you can find it. But honestly, I think it's very hard for the players, this, because like you say, the flag's gone up straight away. OK, the whistle hasn't blown. But looking at it, you've got Benjamin Andre, the Lille captain, who's attacking this corner. He stops playing. He's looking at the linesman complaining, saying, why have you put the flag up? And then the ball's headed down. Yeah, and clearly Brest don't react quickly enough, and Mouko pounces. But I don't know, in a game like that, it's such a terrible way to concede a goal, and it's been created ultimately by a bad mistake, because you can see we don't have goal line technology to see if the ball had crossed and gone straight out, but clearly on the replay it shows that Haraldson's cross swings back in. So for me, the referee's assistant is my villain. But a fascinating incident on the opening weekend. Andy Scott, time to bring you in. Now you're usually focusing on the negative, but I'd like you to focus on the positive here, Andy. He's a dour Scot, and it takes a lot to impress Andy. But who was your hero at the weekend?
I think Georges Mikautadze deserves a mention, because obviously Lyon, they got the win 1-0 away to Lens, a game I was at, and he scored the winning goal, the only goal of the game. And really important for Lyon and for him, because they've lost Alexandre Lacazette, they've lost Ryan Cherki, other players as well. But, they're two creative and goal-scoring figureheads from last season, so they really need Mikautadze to step up. He did that. I mean, it wasn't a difficult goal that he scored, but he scored the winning goal, and a very precious victory for Lyon, who, bizarrely enough, with all the negative talk about them suitably over the summer, you look at the team that went out, that played that game at the weekend, and it's a very decent team. If they can keep the likes, big question marks, Malik Fofana in particular, but if they can keep him, Mikautadze, Tolisso, that's a very decent side. So Mikautadze, the match winner, he is my hero for the opening weekend. Good stuff. And now I'm sure you've got a long list of villains, but if you could just pick one for us, Andy. My villain, it's a bit of a personal one here, but the Nantes PSG game last night, there was a point in the first half where the director decided to use a camera directly opposite me and pan in gradually all the way across the pitch. And I was thinking for quite a long time, why is the director focusing in on me? And it kind of put me off my game a little bit, until I realised, because I had been concentrating so much on the game in front of me, that Luis Castro, the Nantes coach, was sat right next to me, and that's why the director did that. But it did slightly put me off my game for a few seconds. So he's the villain.
There's got to be some way that we can find that footage and insert it into the recording of this podcast. I think people will want to. If you could add some moody music, maybe a bit of "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend," as Andy Scott sees the camera zooming in on him from across the ground. That'd be ideal.
What was funny about this is that, and this maybe gives you a bit of an insight into what it's like commentating a game on the gantry, as they call it. The Luis Castro was sat. There was actually the Nantes analyst who was sat right next to me, and then Luis Castro on the other side. And of course, once I realised he was there, I couldn't stop realising he was there, and he was really, really. He was getting really worked up a lot of the time, as coaches tend to do, turning around and punching the wall behind him and stuff like that. But of course, the main camera operator was on my left. And frequently he was turning round and asking me to move out of the way so that he could get a clear shot of Luis Castro. So it was quite difficult to kind of concentrate on the game and at the same time get out of the way for the camera operator. So it was something different that I've not really had to confront before while commentating a match in the stadium. But it was good fun.
So I've done my villain. So briefly, my hero... It's a Rennes player. I was at Rennes on Friday night. Terrific game, Rennes against Marseille. There was a lot of focus on one of Rennes' signings, Valentin Rongier, who was an important player for Marseille until recently. He moved to Rennes, a controversial move, because Rennes and their supporters do not like Nantes. And Valentin Rongier is seen as a Nantes boy. He joined at a very young age. He came through the academy, and there was a lot of fuss. There were a lot of objections from the Rennes ultras, from the Rennes fans. And actually, before the game, there was a banner that was unveiled that had the definition of to do a Rongier, which they claim is an expression that means to throw your honour into the gutter, lose all credibility and self-respect. And despite that, Valentin Rongier turned in a really good performance. He was excellent for Rennes. He's a really good footballer. And by the end of the night, he was in front of the Rennes ultras, leading the cheering and the celebrations. So, as is often the case in football, when things go well, when somebody plays well, and he did play well, by the way, you're quickly adopted and your past can be forgotten. So I do think Rongier could do very well at Rennes, and he's my hero because I like him, as a player and as a person. Very well-spoken, intelligent bloke. And I think he's going to be a really good signing for Rennes. So there we have it. We'll move on to our next little segment. And we're going to try to guess who's going to be the surprise package, the dark horse this season in France. You can't choose Paris Saint-Germain. You probably can't choose Marseille or Monaco either, Tom. But who's going to be your surprise package? Who's going to do a Brest? That's the way we define it. Brest, who came third 2 seasons ago.
Well, I mean, I think if it's who's going to do a Brest, it's got to be a team who are going to kind of come out of nowhere and really take us by surprise. There are obvious candidates to crash into the Champions League places. Strasbourg came very close last season, but I'm going to go for Auxerre, who finished 11th last season on their return to the French top flight. Very historic French club, notably thanks to the great Giroud. And they had a fantastic season, brilliant home record, beat Marseille home and away. Some very handsome wins. They put 4 goals past Rennes. They put 4 goals past Lens. They've got a good manager in Christophe Pellissier. A few question marks this summer because they've lost so many key players. Gaëtan Perrin, who was absolutely magnificent all the way through last season, has gone to Krasnodar in Russia. Hamed Junior Traoré, who was on loan from Bournemouth, has gone back to Bournemouth. Jubal, the penalty-taking Brazilian centre-back and captain, has also gone. But they have brought in some new players, and Traoré's been replaced with a kind of like-for-like switch, and they've got this young Ghanaian winger, Ibrahim Osman, who's come in on loan from Brighton. They've also signed Joshua Casimir from Le Havre, although he did miss a penalty in the game over the weekend. Lassine Sinioko, centre-forward, is still there at time of recording. They've got young players like Kevin Danois, the midfielder, who came through the Auxerre youth ranks and is very highly rated. So, I mean, it'll be a stretch for them to get into Europe, but I think after what they achieved last season, particularly given how strong they are at home, I think, Auxerre might be one to keep an eye on this season.
Yeah, Ibrahim Osman, no relation to Russell Osman, the former Ipswich stalwart back in the 70s, 80s.
Yeah, an important clarification.
Andy Scott, and by the way, that's a good shout, Tom. That is actually the dark horse that I chose, but I was hesitating with another, so I'm going to go with my other choice. But let's hear what Andy's got to say on this.
It's funnily enough, I mentioned Lyon before, and I think I might actually go for them because we're expecting them to have a bad season after everything that's happened, but all the signs from the pre-season and the first game of this season, albeit against, maybe not one of the very top teams in the league, but still a tough away game in Lens, looked pretty promising. Paulo Fonseca's had a full pre-season to work with his team, which they keep saying is a really important thing. He's a coach who has a very specific way of playing. He obviously came in midway through the last season, not easy for him to really get his ideas across. Now he's had that time. Couple of new faces coming in. They're kind of unknown quantities. Tyler Morton from Liverpool, where he wasn't playing much. A couple of Czech signings as well to look out for. But as I said, the players they already have, a lot of them are very decent. I mean, they underachieved last season, but if they were to finish 6th this season, it would be an overachievement, I think, given everything that's happened. So I think people are expecting them to find things really difficult. There's been so much turbulence at the club off the field, which I'm sure we'll touch on again, today and in the weeks and months ahead. But the fact is that the signs on the field so far, just one competitive game, are promising. So I'm going to go for Lyon as a potential surprise. Maybe with the pressure off for once. They've had all these years not finishing in the Champions League places when they've been expected to do that, really. And they should, given their stature in the French game. But maybe I think there's an opening. I think there's a chance for them to even compete for top 4 because of the way in which other clubs have been weakened too. So, yeah, I'm going to say Olympique Lyonnais as a potential surprise package.
Yeah, interesting, Andy, and it just goes to show really how far Lyon have fallen, given that we're calling them a potential dark horse this season. I agree with Tom. I think Auxerre are going to have a good season, but in terms of who's going to do a Brest, I'm going to go with Brest. I was really, really impressed with the way they battled against Lille on Sunday. They're so formidable at home. They've got this small, compact stadium, the Stade Francis Leblay. They've got a coach, Eric Roy, who just seems so determined to prove to everybody that he is a top coach, and it's not just a fluke that he got them into the Champions League once. They've kept the vast majority of their top players. Mady Camara has left the club, but I think Kamari Doumbia is ready now to step in, the Malian midfielder who scored 2 against Lille. So he'll play with Les Melu and with Hugo Magnetti in the midfield. You've got Del Castillo on one flank. You've got Ludovic Ajorc up top as well. So I think given that they don't have Europe now, they've got a much smaller squad, but I think they have the tools to finish top half and maybe even push for Europe. We're going to take a quick break now. We will be back in part 2 with more Ligue 1 chat. Welcome back to Across the Channel. In part 2, we're going to look at some of the best signings, the people who we think might flop, the people we think might top score in Ligue 1 this season. And we're going to start now by looking at who we believe is going to be the next big thing. Which youngster is going to take Ligue 1 by storm? There are an awful lot of young players in Ligue 1 these days. I couldn't believe the number of 17-year-olds playing over the weekend in the games that I was covering. I'm going to start by asking you, Tom Williams. I would say probably 21 is the limit in terms of ages here. So who would you pick?
Okay, well, in that case, my pick just gets in. So I'm going to go for Jaoui Cissé of Rennes, 21-year-old midfielder. I was pretty annoyed when he broke into the Rennes team midway through last season because he pushed Welshman Jordan James onto the bench, and I had very high hopes for Jordan James' time at Rennes. I interviewed him towards the beginning of last season, and he was very excited about the challenge of playing in Ligue 1. And then Habib Bey came in as head coach and shook things up a bit. One of the first things he did was put Jaoui Cissé into the team, playing as a number 6, and he was absolutely brilliant. And he basically became, a nailed-on starter over the rest of the campaign. Very classy, kind of tall, rangy central midfielder. Bit of a Patrick Vieira air to him, bit of an Abu Diaby vibe perhaps as well. And then goes off the back of last season into the under-21 Euros with France and absolutely bosses it again. And he starts scoring absolute screamers, finishes as France's top scorer at the tournament with 3 goals. Bit more competition for places in that Rennes midfield this season. We mentioned Valentin Rongier, who has come in. Mady Camara has also arrived from Brest. You've got Seko Fofana looking to kick on from a pretty underwhelming second half of the season last season. But I mean, Cissé has shown how good he is already, so I would have thought that Habib Bey will be really keen to keep a place for him in the team.
I think that's a great shout. He was so impressive, wasn't he, in the second half of last season and with France. I look forward to watching Jaoui Cissé this season with Rennes before his €70 million move to Arsenal, as he becomes, like you say, the next Vieira, Diaby. It's inevitable. Yeah. It's inevitable. Andy Scott, the next big thing in Ligue 1.
I hope that Jaoui Cissé doesn't have the same injury problems as Abu Diaby. Well, I think that you're right. There's so many young players to choose from. Seni Mayulu is a guy who we saw a bit of last season, and he appeared in the Champions League final, didn't he? So maybe not a complete unknown because he's playing for the European champions and all the rest of it. But the reality is that Paris Saint-Germain are going to need to really use all their players, all their squad this season. It's off the back of such a long campaign last time around. They've got another big season coming up, and I think he is going to have more of an important role to play in this season, and he's a player in whom Luis Enrique has very high hopes. He is a very, very talented young player. I think he's going to have a huge future ahead of him. It remains to be seen whether that will be at PSG in the long term or perhaps elsewhere, but I suspect he's going to be more and more prominent this season, and this could be the year in which he really kicks on and really makes a name for himself at the highest level. And, just given PSG's faith in young players, I think he's going to be one to really look out for.
He does look very classy, doesn't he, Andy? What What do you think's his best position? Because I've seen him play sort of a variety of kind of midfield.
It's quite hard to pin him down because he's quite a lightweight in terms of build, and that makes you think that maybe he doesn't perhaps have the physical impact that you might need to play in a midfield three. But at the same time, I don't really think he's a winger. He's certainly not a central attacking player in a front three, so I think it's got to be in the midfield three. I still think that he's likely to play, for example, in games like PSG's next game against Angers. If he's fit, he may start in the midfield in that game. I think those types of matches will see more of him in the starting lineup this season, and then coming off the bench with fresh legs in midfield in bigger games as the season goes on. But yeah, I think it has to be in the midfield three on one side of Vitinha, that's where he's going to make an impact. And he scores goals from midfield. He's got a good shot on him. Just a really exciting talent.
Okay, good shout. Seni Mayulu, watch out for him. Remember the name. He has already scored a goal in the Champions League final, so I think a lot of people out there will have heard of Seni Mayulu. I'm going to go for... I was hesitating between two 20-year-olds. Jeremy Jacquet, I love his name. A Rennes centre-half who came in under Habib Beye. He was actually on loan at Clermont last season, was called back, and he looks really classy. But I'm not going to go for him because we've already gone for one Rennes player. I'm going to go for Malik Fofana, who showed more than a few glimpses last season of what he's capable of. Pocket-sized Belgian left winger who is really fast. Also has end product. He seems to have composure when he's in positions, when he's through on goals. So just 5 goals in Ligue 1 last season. But as I think Tom alluded to earlier, Lyon have lost a lot of attacking players, or it may have been Andy, sorry. But, obviously Cherki going, Lacazette. They're going to need Malik Fofana to step up, probably get into double figures for goals. He's been linked with a Premier League move, but hopefully Lyon can hold on to him, and I think he's going to have a big season. Anybody want to disagree with me on that?
Yes, I think you're talking absolute rot. I think he's completely overrated. No, can't argue with that, Matt. I think he's brilliant. And yeah, the main question mark this season is, are Lyon going to be able to hold on to him? He's now that Cherki and Lacazette and Thiago Almada have gone, he is without doubt the most sort of sellable asset that they have. But given the players they've lost and the difficulty they're going to have recruiting new players because of their financial difficulties, it does feel like he's one they need to really hang on to if they can.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Andy Scott, Ligue 1's best signing. Who's going to be the signing that really inspires his team?
That's a difficult question to answer. I have a couple of suggestions. I think one to look out for might be Mady Camara, because I really liked him when he was at Brest. I thought he was a really excellent player in that team that got to the Champions League and then did pretty well in the Champions League. He got his move to Rennes, and I think that when you were asking me about who the surprise package might be, I was quite tempted to actually say Rennes because again, they're a team who've made some interesting signings in the summer and look like they're going to kick on under Habib Beye and potentially get back into Europe. And I just think that you've mentioned Jawi Cissé, the other players they have in the midfield. I just think he gives them just an extra body, an extra lungs and legs in that midfield, and he's an exciting player. And I think that he could be a player who will help them kick on and get back into Europe, and just an excellent player, a football nut as well. He's talked in the past about how much he loves watching games when he's not playing games. Quite a lot of footballers don't do that, which might surprise some people. They prefer to switch off completely when they're not on the pitch, but he loves the game. He's a good player, and I'm pleased that he stayed in France because they would have been interested in him from abroad. So yeah, I'm going to say Mady Camara.
I think you're right. It's interesting what's going on at Rennes, but I also think they desperately lack a striker. Arnaud Kalimwendo is on his way out, and we saw Altamari did pretty well against Marseille. We saw Ludovic Blas come on, but these are not guys over a season that are going to get 15, 20 goals. You got the youngster Kader Mete. So I think what is vital is that they do sign a proper goal scorer. I know they've been inquiring about Esteban Lepaul of Angers. Angers don't want to let him go. But Tom, who's been your best signing this summer? Who do you think?
I'm going to go for Eric Dyer, a name familiar to fans of English football and also German football, thanks to his spell at Bayern Munich. And Monaco, as we know, have got a huge amount of very talented young players, but their downfall last season repeatedly, both in Liga and in the Champions League, was kind of silly, avoidable defensive errors a lot of the time. And so they've made a very concerted effort this summer to bring in more experience. Paul Pogba's arrival has obviously grabbed most of the headlines, but Eric Dyer was their first summer signing. He made a very impressive start in his first game against Le Havre on Saturday, scored with a header from a corner, and was sort of widely praised for his calming influence on the Monaco back line. So I think, given the amount of talent around him, but also the fact that there has, over the last 2 or 3 seasons, been a lack of wise old heads, I think he could have a really big role to play at Stade Louis II this season.
Yeah, Eric Dyer, who is no relation to the former Ipswich player Kieran Dyer, by the way. I think it's a very good shout, Tom. My signing of the season, I have to say I loved it on Sunday, commentating Brest against Lille. We were 10 minutes into the game. Little ball through from Felix Correa, who's one of Lille's new signings. And Olivier Giroud just was onto it in a flash. First time finish, beyond the goalkeeper. It was just Giroud through and through. It was an incredible finish. 13 years after he last played in Ligue 1, Olivier Giroud was back. He turns 39 next month, but I really think he is going to do well at Lille because he is a guy who just defies the odds. He seems to want to prove the critics wrong all the time. He was playing with a smile in his face on Sunday. He was giving instructions. He was trying to help the younger players. I think despite his age, he is going to be a terrific signing. On the other side, because I'm going to ask you for your flops now, guys, my flop, and I'm sorry to say this because I like him as a player, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I think it's going to be hard at Marseille. He had that good season 2 seasons ago at the Velodrome before moving to Saudi Arabia. He's a great finisher. I just think at some point, he's a bit younger than Giroud, but at some point when you do get old, a player who relies a lot on his speed, he's not going to quite have that same speed. The pressure at Marseille is already building after that opening day defeat. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang as the flop this season. Tom, who's your flop?
I think you need certain factors aligned for a true flop. It needs to be someone who ideally has cost a decent amount of money, who's arrived with a lot of expectation, who has joined quite a big club and then falls flat on his face. There aren't that many candidates who tick that box in Ligue 1 this season, mainly because not many clubs have got much money to spend, and even the ones that do, haven't necessarily been spending it so far. But I feel like, and not to sort of cast further aspersions about the nature of Marseille's recruitment, but Igor Paixão feels potentially floppy. He's cost a €35 million, club record deal, Brazilian winger, a left-sided, right-footed player, has arrived from Feyenoord, currently injured, had a brilliant season last season at Feyenoord, 18 goals in all competitions. He's got Champions League experience. He ticks a huge amount of boxes. He's been signed to replace Luis Enrique, who's obviously gone to Inter and will be taking over from Jonathan Rowe once he's recovered from this injury. And hopefully he's absolutely brilliant, and he could well be. But the transfer fee, the fact he's Brazilian, it feels potentially floppy to me.
Well, because Brazilians never do well, do they, Tom? It's
exactly.
An overrated nation when it comes to football.
Exactly. Notorious.
But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how he gets on. Andy Scott, I'm sure you've got a potential flop for us.
Well, an obvious one, Paul Pogba. I just think because everybody's talking about Paul Pogba's return, and naturally that generates a lot of excitement. But the reality is this guy has hardly played a game of football in 3 years, and even if he makes a contribution, I just suspect that it might not be up to the levels of hope that people have invested in him coming back to France and playing for such a great name. So I think the chances of this signing turning into a brilliant signing and him being a difference maker again very soon for Monaco are quite slim. So from that point of view, I suspect that it might feel like a bit of a flop at the end of the season, even if he does okay. This is Paul Pogba, World Cup winner, coming back to Ligue 1. I just think there's a big chance that it's not going to work out.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if Paul Pogba can ram Andy Scott's words down his throat.
No, I'd be delighted if I'm wrong, but I just think that all the evidence of the last 2 or 3 years suggests that it might be a big ask for Paul Pogba to be the player he once was.
Good stuff, Andy. Our last segment now. We've already reached the final one. We're going to try to predict the top scorer in Ligue 1 this season. We do have the benefit of having seen one match day, but as Andy pointed out, there weren't a huge number of goals, a lot of 1-0s. I'll start with you, Tom. Who are you fancying to win the Golden Boot in France?
I mean, it will almost certainly be a PSG player because they score so many goals and they have so many talented attacking players, most notably Ousmane Dembele. But if it isn't, how about Mika Biereth, who had an absolutely incredible impact at Monaco last season after signing from Sturm Graz in January. Hat-tricks in 3 successive Ligue 1 home games, which is absolutely remarkable. He's going to start every game at centre-forward. He's got brilliant young players around him, provided Monaco managed to hold on to them. And he's a proper old-school centre-forward. So I'm going to go with Mika Biereth.
Which was also my kind of initial hunch, but I've decided that Tom's going to be wrong, so I've tried to think of another one. I'm going to go with Mason Greenwood, actually, who finished joint top scorer last season with Ousmane Dembele. Penalty taker, second season in France, hugely popular among the Velodrome supporters, and I know De Zerbi had quite a few issues with him sort of midway through last season, not sort of working hard enough, not participating in the defensive side, but he started he was electric in pre-season. I was going to say he started in an electric fashion, but he wasn't so good on Friday night, but then nor were Marseille. They struggled to really create any clear chances. But I think Greenwood, coming into his prime, if he's not there already now, has everything he needs to go and enjoy a prolific season at Marseille. Andy, who are you going for?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously agree with Tom that it's likely to be a PSG player, but I think that Georges Mikau-Tadze, again, I talked about him before, he's a goal scorer, and he scored lots of goals for a struggling team 2 years ago, FC Metz. He still scored about 17 goals in all competitions last season, even when he wasn't the main man. And given that he is now undoubtedly the main man in the Lyon attack, if he can cope with that pressure, then I think he can score a lot of goals. So why not Georges Mikau-Tadze? Obviously, they have the Europa League as well. Plenty of chances for him to get on the score sheet, and I can easily see him scoring 20, if not more, this season.
Okay. I'm not going to let you get away, both of you, with saying that a PSG player will finish top scorer anyway. I know, Tom, you mentioned Dembele. Who's going to finish top scorer for PSG? At least, put your money where your mouth is a little bit, Tom.
I mean, it'll probably be Dembele, won't it? If they carry on playing the way they did last season, which we expect they will, then Dembele is going to be the guy playing through the middle. Bradley Barcola, Kvaratskhelia, Desiré Doué are all capable of finishing on 15, 20 goals, each of them. Gonzalo Ramos had a decent season last season as a kind of impact sub, and I'm sure he'll be in the goals again. But, there's a danger that Dembele season was a bit of a one-off, a kind of career high point that can't be repeated. But I think if PSG reach the levels they do last season and carry on playing in the same way, Dembele's going to be probably racking up decent numbers again.
Yeah, and you've got to hope he stays fit as well, as he did for most of last season, because he's had problems, hasn't he, through the years. Andy, would you go along with that, Dembele?
Yeah, but I suppose if that's somehow too obvious, I do expect that Desiré Doué will do even better this season. What an absolutely tremendous player he is. Again, everybody saw that in the Champions League final. It's not something that nobody has already seen. But the other one, I mean, this is left field, but the other one could be Vitinha. You know, I mean, he usually scores his penalties. I know that he's missed a couple recently in high-profile games, but, you know, Vitinha perhaps. But yeah, I mean, again, the goals will be spread out in that PSG team. It's just whether or not somebody will stand out above all others.
I'd love to get into a chat about Vitinha's penalty techniques. He's been switching it up a little bit recently, but we'll have to save that for another day. The podcast is going to be back next week, where we'll be reflecting on the latest news and the big talking points in Ligue 1. If you did enjoy listening to us today, please do tell your mates about it. Not necessarily people who know French football inside out. We want to get some new listeners involved. I think it's a fascinating league. There's so much to get your teeth into, and I think there is stuff that happens in France that just doesn't happen in other leagues as well. And we've got a lot of talent in France this year, and hopefully a very competitive season. Also, we're relying on you, the listeners. You are absolutely key. You are going to have to make sure the podcast works by listening, by rating us, leaving nice reviews, and hopefully following us throughout the season. It was great to have Andy Scott and Tom Williams with me today. Thank you very much for joining us, boys, and we look forward to having you on throughout the season. And we'll see you again for another edition, another podcast across the channel next week. Take care. Bye-bye.